Spain, 1936. Spain at this point has been having a rough go of the last 100 years at least. But in 1931, they ditched their king and formed a republic. The new government wanted to reform and modernize the country, secularize the government, autonomy for Catalonia and the Basque Country, women's rights, an alarming amount of change that outraged the political right wing. However, all of those reforms moved real slow-like, leaving the left wing very disappointed in the lack of things actually changing. Political polarization flared up, political violence was soon to follow, and then in 1936, the right wing launches a coup that only half succeeds. But they committed to it, thrusting Spain into a civil war. On one side, Francisco Franco's nationalist rebels, and on the other side, a bickering coalition of leftists keeping the republic on life support. And in the middle, a dude named Juan Pujol García, living on a poultry farm. Soon after the war began, some communists came knocking on behalf of the Republic. They've come to take his sister's fiancé away, believing him to be a Franco sympathizer. Suddenly, Garcia is feeling kind of sympathetic towards Franco. Knock knock, it's the communists again. They're taking away Garcia's sister and his mother for being anti-communist. Suddenly, Garcia is feeling pretty anti-communist. Knock knock, it's the communists. Now they're saying they want to give Juan a gun. Hooray! But he has to point it away from the communists, at those guys over there. Garcia doesn't like that deal. He hides at his girlfriend's house and then gets arrested for not complying with the draft, until some friendly neighborhood monarchists get him out of jail and give him a fake ID. He goes back to poultry farming, but man, the communists went and made everything all communisty, and now his farm's not making any money. So with nowhere else to go, Garcia decides the grass is looking pretty green on the other side. He plans a daring mission to sneak across the front lines into rebel territory and start a new life. Garcia takes his fake ID and signs up to fight for the communists. He hops out of his trench and runs onto the other side, narrowly dodging patrols and gunfire from the communists until the rebels pick him up and dust him off. Hola, amigo. Hola. You wouldn't believe what I just went through. Things over there are rough with those communists. It's okay. You're among friends now. And now we can shoot communists together with the refreshing taste of Francisco Franco's fascism light. Garcia spent the rest of the war being abused and at times imprisoned by the Nationalist Army. Flash forward to 1940, Franco's nationalists have won the Spanish Civil War, and if there's one thing Garcia hates as much as communists, it's fascists. He's looking for a way to get back at them without teaming up with communists. Luckily, the sequel to the First World War just came out, and the British are also very into fighting fascists. So Garcia goes to the British embassy asking to spy for them. The British turn him down. He tries 3 times, but I guess he hasn't got the resume. So Juan Pujol García has an idea. What if there was another way to help the Allies? One that would give him experience as a spy and put Germany on the back foot. The British might not have wanted him, but Hitler was hiring. Unfortunately today, most of the spying that goes on around the world is on you. Platforms like Google or Instagram might be free to use, but remember, when the product is free, you are the product. Your information is being sold to data brokers who distribute it to advertisers, whether savory or not. There are laws that protect your data, but instead of your data being opt-in, it's opt-out, which means you're stuck battling hundreds of companies one by one over and over again each time they scrape your data, which could take years. But Incogni is your double agent. With your approval, they'll go after those data brokers, getting your information removed as many times as it takes to keep your privacy protected and spam texts out of your phone. Use code RACK'EM at the link below to get an exclusive 60% off an annual Incogni plan. That's incogni.com/RACK'EM. Thanks to Incogni for making this show possible. Garcia comes up with a fake ID and convinces the Nazis he works for the Spanish government. They set him up on a mission in London to recruit a network of spies. Instead, he goes to Lisbon, Portugal, and looks up a bunch of magazines and tourist guides, and tells the German government all about the places he's visiting, the things he's seen. He tallies up a list of expenses, and little by little, he assembles his crack team of fictional spies. So he starts feeding the Germans garbage information, and eventually, the British intercepted his transmissions to German high command, and they thought, cheese and crackers, there's a spy in London! We've got to catch this spy! Except as they looked into it, they noticed some holes in his story. Garcia talked about how to bribe dock workers with a liter of wine, despite wine not being sold by the liter. His expense reports indicate he clearly had no idea how many shillings were in a pound. From the British perspective, these reports are obviously coming from someone who has never set foot in Britain. In fact, the Nazis have been so gullible, it's suspicious. Besides never fact-checking how British money works, are the British really supposed to believe that the Axis have spent thousands of man-hours trying to sink a non-existent British convoy on its way to Malta, and instead of once questioning Garcia, the Germans just blamed the Italians for being bad at their job? God, the Axis was such a hot mess diplomatically. I had to make a whole separate video for that. The Nazis were so bad at their job that when Garcia reaches out to the Allies again in 1942, they're not sure what to do with him. The British are afraid the Germans might have planted Garcia to become a triple agent, because surely the Germans can't be that gullible. But the British set aside their fears. They recognize what a huge help Garcia has been to them, and they set him up in London with the code name Garbo. Not because he was garbage, but in honor of his case officer's favorite film star and sapphic icon, Greta Garbo. The plan, in coordination with British intelligence, was for Garcia to continue being a chaotic goober for the forces of good by giving the Germans three kinds of information. First, fake stories like the British convoy that never existed, or how the Allies were going to land soldiers on the Western Front in 1943 instead of 1944. Second, information that's true, but useless. Stuff the Germans could eventually confirm for themselves to throw them off the scent. The important thing was that there was always enough reliable information coming in that the Germans never questioned the information they'd already been given. Third, and cleverest of all, information that was true and useful, but late. Just before the Allies landed in North Africa, Garcia sent word to the Germans that a convoy of warships had left port in Mediterranean camouflage. The British are mobilizing. This can only mean one thing. Look out! But oh no, it arrived just a couple days too late. A German command humbly replied, "We are sorry they arrived late, but your reports are magnificent." Garcia pulled his greatest con in 1944. The British were attempting to mislead the Germans about where the Allies would land on D-Day, setting up a huge fake army with inflatable tanks, vans moving back and forth in circles, and huge amounts of radio chatter. Garcia points to all of this as evidence and says the Allies are going to attack Calais, which is the part of France that's closest to England, so it only makes sense. Then, obviously, D-Day happens. The Allies attack in Normandy, which is not Calais, and the Germans call him out, right? Of course not! The Germans are actually late to reply to him, so Garcia cusses them out for being slow on the job, saying, "I cannot accept excuses or negligence. Were it not for my ideals, I would abandon the work I do for you." Then, weeks after D-Day, Germany was still keeping 21 divisions in Calais, believing that there was another invasion coming any day now. Better yet, nearly 2 months after D-Day, Garcia was awarded an Iron Cross medal for his service to the Reich. And because he wasn't a frontline soldier, that means Hitler personally signed off on awarding a medal to this guy who hadn't given them a single piece of useful information for the entire war. And for doing such a bad job as a German spy, Garcia was awarded a medal from the King of England just a few months later, making Garcia one of of only 2 men to have been decorated by both sides in World War II. Worried that the truth would get out after the war was over, Garcia faked his death in 1949 and spent the remainder of his life running a bookstore in Venezuela. But it wasn't until someone tracked down Garcia in the 80s to publish an autobiography that his role in the war became public knowledge. The Nazis never figured it out.